Spiritual awakening is one of the hardest processes we'll ever have to go through. It is connecting to our own soul, it's remembering who we are, but it is very difficult to shed the ego. It's very difficult to shed that 3D reality. But I've been guided to talk about how it affects men differently. I have I think men will find it harder to awaken, find it harder to trust the process, because it's more difficult for men to speak to others. So it's harder for them to understand what's going through. And because of this patriarchal society, and because of, I suppose, this toxic masculinity that we have to unlearn, it is a lot harder, I think, for men to go through awakening than it is for women. My name is Angela Keary. I'm a feminine empowerment coach, and I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse. I've just had this urge to talk about this for a long time. With men, I think it's a lot more difficult to open up to spirituality than it is for women. We're breaking generational curses, right? So for women, for example, for myself, I'm breaking a generational curse of being persecuted for being a witch in a past life, for being spiritual, for being open. And a lot of this witch stuff that we were called witches is actually the women that broke out of normality. They were spiritual, so they were independent. They believed in holistic therapy and healing instead of the medical system or whatever. But a lot of the witches back in the day were just independent women. That was it. They were independent women that thought differently to society. But we're here to break that generational curse. But a man, for example, is breaking the generational curse of being the persecutor. So when we go through spiritual awakening, we're breaking down this karma from past lives as well as this life. We're shedding all of that. We're overcoming that negative belief system towards spirituality. We're all spiritual beings. We all have fucking souls. So we're all spiritual beings. We're living a human experience. We all have spiritual abilities. But because of this generational stuff, because of that persecution, because of witches being bad, all this crap, this is why, this is the curses we're trying to break. But for a man to go into spirituality, and it's because of not just the generational, where they were breaking the curse of being that persecutor back in the day. They're breaking this macho, patriarchal, toxic, masculine curse as well. So it's harder for men to speak about certain things. It's harder for men to even speak about their mental health. And I think a lot of mental health issues are because we're living out of alignment with our soul. So when we spiritual awaken, we're coming into alignment with our soul, we're shedding all that shit, and we're going through this bipolar effect. I've spoken about this before. Spiritual awakening is very, very similar to bipolar, because the dark night of the soul is like the manic state of depression, whereas the heightened state of awareness is like the hyperactive state. So for men, I think it's going to be a lot harder for them, because it's harder for them to reach out. It's harder for them to find someone to speak to. And the thing is with women, like with any of us going through spiritual awakening, we're usually the only one of our family or friends going through it. So it's hard for anyone going through spiritual awakening to actually break out of the box, break out of how people think, and actually follow the truth within our soul. So it's difficult for either gender, for any gender. Not either gender, there's many genders. So I'm speaking about everyone here. It's hard for everyone. But because of the macho mentality, I believe it's harder for men. It's harder for men to open up. Spirituality opens you to your emotions. It opens you to your truth. It opens you to your soul. This isn't very masculine, is it? Or I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean how society deems masculinity, and that's toxic masculinity. Do you know what I mean? So I do believe that it's harder for men to understand or reach out, because I believe women are just, we're just more open-minded, I think. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I really don't. I'm not trying to be against any gender here. I'm not trying to be like that. What I'm trying to say is that we've been the witches in past lives. So therefore, we've been more open about the spiritual side of things. You know what I mean? And I think it's because we don't have that toxic masculine patriarchy community, I suppose, that it's a little bit easier for us. And it's easier for women to talk to each other. Women can talk to each other about anything, whereas men can't talk to each other about the same things. I've seen this in certain things, like, certain things that women do talk about together, men couldn't talk about the same things. So it is harder for men to open up because they're surrounded by this toxic masculine community, really. And that's what it is. And I don't mean, every time I say toxic masculinity, I'm not trying to be against men. I suffered from toxic masculinity. I grew up in a toxic masculine household. I had toxic masculine traits. So I'm not anti-men here or anything, because I know what it's like. It's not because of you or them. It's because of society. It's because of generational trauma. It's because of generational curses. It's because of generational learning. It's because of what we've inherited, of what we've learned. And this, and even like, for a lot of men growing up, there's this core kind of a wound, core thing within men, that they are seeking the love of their father. So therefore, because our past generations have been so toxic, unaffectionate, uncommunicative, and very macho, very toxic masculine, the men have inherited this, and I inherited it as well. I've just discovered that I have both sides of my family to heal the generational curse on. So I have lived the masculine lifestyle, if you get me. So I have a bigger understanding. I nearly have a bigger understanding of men than I do women, because I grew up with men, my dad and my brother. My mother left when I was a toddler. I grew up as a tomboy. I grew up with many male friends. I grew up working very masculine jobs, DIY jobs, carpentry, tiling, all that kind of stuff with my dad. I worked in factories as in a man's role, a lot of manual work. I drank with the boys. I was one of the boys. I just was one of the boys. I had toxic masculine traits as well. So I can relate to men a lot. I can relate to men a lot more, I think, than I can relate to women. I'm balanced out now. I'm becoming more feminine since I've awakened, and I love it. I love embracing both sides of myself. But I can connect, I can understand the male mentality an awful lot, because I lived in that world. And I understand how macho it was, in a sense. Like, we're men, we build fire, we have no feelings and we have no emotions, and this is the way it was. And things are changing now, and and I'm not saying this for the whole world, like especially in Ireland. This is definitely coming from Ireland, and I've seen this with a lot of European men as well. They're still very, the woman should be in the kitchen, we should be out earning the bread kind of thing. We are men, we build fire. And it's still very imbalanced in that sense, whereas men and women should be equal. We all build our own fucking fires. We're all independent. We can earn our own fucking bread. But you know what I mean? So we're shedding these generational curses, and this is the point of spiritual awakening, is shedding the societal bullshit. And I just think it can be very, very difficult for a man to do this. And I've seen this with certain couples, or even with the twin flame journey. We're in, the awakened woman, the divine feminine, is in such a rush to get her partner or twin flame, whether together or separate, to be on her level, to be awakened as she is. But we need to be more patient, is what I'm trying to say, because it just takes them a little bit longer. And I love how men are changing, and how men are becoming more emotionally intelligent, and they're becoming more aware of their own spirituality and their own truth. But we need to be kind of patient, because we expect them to be as quick as us or to do it as quickly as us. But in fairness, we need to understand that their generational trauma, I won't say it's harder than ours, because our shit is fucking shit, like, but it's harder for them to escape out of. Because women are very sisterhood. We're starting to do that. Like, I know at one stage we were very, I don't know, bitchy, I suppose, but we were able to communicate about the spirituality with each other, and we're helping each other to grow. Whereas with men, it's very isolating, and it's isolating for all genders, you know. But I just believe that there's a certain, it's just that little bit harder for men, and that's why I've been guided to do this video, is that we need to be aware of that. You know, we can be quite pushy sometimes and think, why aren't you on my level when it comes to our divine masculine or our partner? You know, I've seen this, and we can get impatient. But we need to be that bit more compassionate, because it is harder for them to break out of this toxic masculine patriarchy, because that system is what we've been living in for such a long time. Like, we were the victims of it, us women. I do understand that, and it's been very hard for us to break those generational curses as well. But the system has been controlled by this toxic masculinity for such a long, long time. So for a man to be able to break out of that system, break out of those traumas, those curses, it is a lot harder, because we're still kind of living in that patriarchal system. Do you get me? So, like, you know, us women are becoming more empowered, we're becoming more independent, and we're gaining our strength to bring in balance. Whereas there is still that imbalance. And I think because of that patriarchal system, it is still a little bit harder for men to break through that veil than it is for women. Now, I'm not saying it's not hard for us women. It's difficult for all of us. It really fucking is. Spiritual awakening isn't easy. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Don't get me wrong. It's harder. Like, I keep saying spiritual awakening is hard. Yes, it's fucking hard. But it's harder to live in that societal box. It's harder to stay closed off. It's harder not to connect with your soul. So no matter how hard spiritual awakening is, and when I say spiritual awakening, don't be afraid of those words. We are spiritual beings. If you have a soul, you are spiritual. If you have a soul, you have spiritual abilities. We were born with spiritual abilities. We're just reawakening to who we really are and why we're here. So it's not like, you know, this is something we have to do. And it's hard because we're breaking those generational curses. So I do believe that it is that little bit harder for men, because it's harder for them to open up. It's harder for them to express themselves. It's harder for them to speak to people. So we need to understand that, and we need to be kind of more compassionate in that sense. And I know I sound like an oxymoron. Like, 1 minute I'm all, you know, I'm giving out about men, and 1 minute I'm giving out about women. But what I mean is I love everyone, and I don't blame anyone for anything. And the way I see it is, we should all be supporting and helping each other. You know, and even though I'm breaking generational curses to do with a patriarchal system, I still love men. You get me? And I still love my masculine side. I've shed the toxic side of my masculinity. But I still love being the balance of both. I love men and women, no matter how, like, most of my traumas came from men, unfortunately, but I don't hate on them. And, you know, I did a video lately, and I had a bit of controversy on it. And I'm not against men. I'm not anti-men because of this patriarchal society. I want to look after everybody, because I have balance of both within me. We're both masculine and feminine energies. And I want to look after everybody, do you know, that kind of way? Because, even though I grew up in a toxic masculine household, it doesn't mean I regret that. I love that I learned that side of myself. I loved that I had, you know, so many male friends. And I do love that I know men as well as I know women. I love the diversity of it. You know, so I want to be able to help everyone on this planet, you know, male, female, any gender. Do you know, so this is why we're here. We're here to accept and understand each other. We're here as equals. And that's the whole point. We're here to help each other along. We're here to walk each other home. I love that meme, is that we're all just trying to walk each other home. And that's it. Like, we're all here to look after each other. So let's understand that. We're breaking the curses, but we're breaking the curses on both sides. And we have to understand that the men that are trying to spiritually awaken as well, they're trying to break a cycle that is still going. You know, that patriarchal, that toxic masculine, it's still happening, unfortunately. So we have to be compassionate towards the men that are trying to break out. We have to be compassionate towards what they are doing, because, you know, it is harder for them. It's harder for all of us, but it's harder for them because it's harder for them to speak. It's harder for them to speak about their feelings. It's harder for them to speak about their emotions. It's harder for them to be vulnerable. Spiritually awakening makes you vulnerable, which is beautiful. Vulnerability is a strength, and we should all embrace that. Being emotional is a strength, and we should embrace it. Owning your feelings, owning your emotions is a strong thing to do. But it is harder for men to be able to express themselves because of the way society is. So for any men listening, if you need any advice, come to me, because I would love nothing more to help you on your journey as well. I know I'm a feminine empowerment coach, but I seek to help anyone who needs help. So if you need coaching for your journey, male, female, any gender, I'm here to help. I want nothing but to help guide and empower you as well. So I hope this video does resonate with you, and if it does, please like and share, and please subscribe to my channel so I can reach as many people as possible. And if you would like help on your journey, please book me for a discovery call today, and I would love nothing more than to help you on your path.